want to call on the last witness, Dr. SociologistRay, Professor of Sociology, University of Maryland. Dr. Ray.
Chair Norton, Chair DeFazio, Vice Chair Davis, distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity. We've heard a lot about the disparities that exist in traffic stops. I want to talk about our virtual reality program to improve equity and objectivity in policing at traffic stops. As you see here, here's an image of an officer in our lab. We put officers in a virtual reality environment where they encounter the sort of scenarios that they do every single day. Traffic stops, but other types of programs. We have four major objectives: to improve decision-making and reduce bias, evaluate how stress, sleep, and travel affect judgment and behavior. These are factors that are oftentimes underemphasized, but our research in the Lab for Applied Social Science Research at the University of Maryland suggests that they matter quite a bit. Provide tools and metrics to improve interpersonal dynamics and cross-cultural awareness, and then offer recommendations from our research that can reduce conflict and misunderstanding. We've developed over 100 virtual reality scenarios: suspicious person scenes, domestic scenes, robbery scenes, but I'm going to double down on focusing on pullover scenes and traffic stops for the purposes of this hearing. Officers encounter people that vary by race, by gender, by language. We went out with law enforcement in the state of Maryland. You can see here officers showing us where they stand. You see a police car in the back as if you pull someone over. You see that there's traffic going by on a busy street, really mimicking the sort of scenarios that they go through. When officers go into the VR and they pull someone over, they're given a series of prompts. Those prompts ask them, do they want to run a driver's license? If they say yes, they see a series of additional prompts talking about, do you want to dismiss the driver with a warning? Do you want to give a citation? Do you want to investigate further? When they investigate further, they're able to look into the vehicle. They find some marijuana residue. And then they are asked what they want to do again. You can see on the left that they encounter individuals of different racial backgrounds. We do the same thing for gender and language as well. They wear the same thing. You see an officer at the bottom going through it. And we collect a host of information, not only their behavior and their decision making, but also the participants' physiological outcomes, which I'll say something about in a second, their attitudes, their demographics, the virtual reality actor demographics, and then the setting. Are they in a rural area, in an urban area? Is it busy or is it not? As you see here, we are taking officers through the virtual reality. You see a series of metrics that I'll talk about in a second that allow us to get beyond just the way we might think about the way that police officers behave and actually explain why they're behaving the way they do. So the way that officers are actually responding in the moment, we put little sensors on replica weapons. We outfit them to specific departments. We know when officers pull their weapon, when they shoot the trigger, when they put it back in their holster. You can see the data blown up on the right side. We can also track their eyes. We know exactly where they're looking at. Anyone who's a law enforcement officer knows that when they approach a vehicle, they're looking in the vehicle, they're looking behind it. There's research suggesting that they're more likely to look in the vehicle for certain people, less likely for others. This becomes an important training tool. We can also examine police officers' heart rates. We put heart rate monitors on them. We can examine their heart rate, as you see in this example. Officer CP starts out interacting with someone. Heart rate is on the y-axis on the left. The seconds is on the bottom. As he starts talking, his heart rate increases because what the person is doing in this particular scenario has led to that increase, and that could also impact the officer's judgment. We are able to compare some of these outcomes. So for example, we could compare less experienced officers to more experienced officers. More experienced officers tend to be more stable, less stress, similar heart rates throughout, helping them to make better decisions. We can also examine their stress through speech. We put their audio through a voice machine, and that tells us how stressed officers might be. And then finally, we give officers a police report to fill out. But look, instead of me just telling you this, I think one of the best things to do is to show you. What you're going to see is a brief demo showing you what it looks like when officers go through the virtual reality program. You'll see an officer first going through what it looks like in our lab, and then also something that's extremely innovative, which is how we move beyond just working with officers in a lab to help local police departments end up being able to interact with people in person in a setting, say with high school students in a school. So as we're pulling this up, part of what you'll see is the officer reacting. You won't be able to hear it, I'll narrate it through, but you'll be able to see the officer reacting in that moment with the goggles on. This is an officer from the Midwest. You can see that he's talking to someone, that he's telling someone to move, he's giving directions. So they are fully immersed in a 360-degree environment. But as I said, one of the biggest innovations as well is not just our ability to take the data, but to work with local communities to improve police-community relationships. We go into schools, work with local police departments. You see this officer here with a traffic stop. We bring up an officer and students up at the same exact time. They go through the same scenario. You see the officer interacting with the person on the screen. You see he's having a conversation with her. You'll see in a second additional prompts pop up. And part of what it's doing is asking the same questions that I just showed you on the graph about what decisions that he wants to make. Does he want to run the license? He runs the license. It comes back suspended. He's asked to do additional things. What this officer chose to do was to allow someone to come and get the driver and also get the vehicle if they have a valid driver's license. Other officers might choose to make different decisions. We then break students up in groups with police officers and community members to have conversations about what's going on. One of the most powerful things was a student who said that he had never had a normal conversation with a police officer before that day. Our program is not only built to go across the country, which we've done in some regards, but it also helps to improve police community relations. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. That was, to hear those innovations was very enlightening. Now to Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Professor Ray, again, welcome to the committee, and thanks for your testimony, in which you mentioned that since 2017, the Lab for Applied Social Science Research at the University of Maryland has developed over 100 virtual reality scenarios. You testified that you've trained and worked with over 2,000 police officers in large, mid-size, and small departments across the country to develop and implement a virtual reality decision-making program for law enforcement. So I just have a few questions. First is this virtual reality program ready to scale? And if so, what does that look like logistically?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. So yes, we are prepared to scale. We've worked with police officers in various places around the country. Including Maryland, obviously, but North Carolina, Ohio, Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee. What it looks like logistically, what we've done up to this point is we fly groups of officers into our labs, that space that people were able to see on the images and the videos. We take them through our program. It takes about 4 hours to go through. Oftentimes they'll go through several scenarios, but we are also equipped to be virtual and with resources to go to specific departments. That's one of the big things that departments ask us. They say, hey, can we get this? Sometimes it's a funding issue for them at the local level to be able to bring our equipment and what we do to them. We also have a train the trainer course, which people who are part of the Department of Homeland Security have participated in to use our program to train their own officers.
Thank you. How do you ensure the protection of information and data? You're collecting a lot of it during these scenarios. You outlined to the committee the types of data. And so how do you protect it, and where is the information housed or stored? Who has the custody of it?
Mm-hmm. So the data are stored on password protected devices at the University of Maryland. When we set this up at specific police departments, it's housed there in a similarly secure data file. Importantly, though, is we really uphold confidentiality and anonymity. We never ask personal identifying information, no names, no badge numbers. Instead, it's simply demographic information, and we examine what we do at the group level. Also importantly, as members of Congress know, at universities, one important part for oversight is we have what's called institutional review boards. We call them IRB. For any type of research we conduct, it has to be approved by a committee. Oftentimes we have a series of revisions. With this project, that's definitely been the case. And so we have a lot of protocols in place to protect officers. I have a series of police officers in my family, and I understand the importance of protecting their confidentiality and anonymity and allowing them to train in a safe environment so that then they can get on the street to reduce bias, to treat people in a way that allows them to protect and serve.
So you mentioned the work that you've done with Prince George's Police Department. That's the county that I have the privilege of representing, at least part of it, along with Mr. Hoyer. Do you just work with departments from the Maryland area, or are you able to offer this program to departments across the country?
Yes, we are definitely able to offer it to departments around the country. And I mean, as to date, we've worked with departments from North Carolina, from Ohio, Tennessee, Arkansas, Missouri. And I should be clear that we've worked with large, medium-sized, and small departments. That was really, really important for us. I'm originally from Tennessee. I went to grad school in Indiana, did a postdoc in California. Now I'm in Maryland. I've lived all over the country. And one thing that I know is that a lot of small and medium-sized departments, particularly those in rural America, get left out of programs like this. We wanted to ensure that our program was set up where we will be able to work with those departments. And we do have the capacity to do that, to take it to scale. And with the proper resources, we're able to bring small departments to us. And then for larger departments, we're able to outfit them with the proper equipment and technology, and then provide logistical and software support to help them be able to use our program long term.
Well, thank you, Professor Ray, and I see that my time's about to expire. I will abide by the time allocated through the rules of the committee. I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing at the University of Maryland, the work that you're doing at Brookings. Thank you for testifying today, and it sounds like, you know, this program, which is well developed, well thought out, and, you know, can be tailored to so many different departments, is something that's valuable. And with additional federal funding, I'm hoping to see it in departments across the country. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman for his questions, and now I recognize